Welcome back. New York business titans know what Zohran Mamdani means for their bottom line. It means higher taxes, government-controlled housing, socialist experiments in grocery stores, hostile agenda for anyone who actually builds, invests, or hires in this city. Now they're circling the wagons. A new report says one top New York real estate leader wrote to fellow developers on Monday night saying, "We must act decisively to ensure that the next mayor of New York is Andrew Cuomo." The email also urged developers to meet with the former governor today to plot his path to victory. Now, this is a race, Liz Peek, that is indeed heating up post-Labor Day. Brian, I've said that before. Not heating up.
I wanted to believe you back then, Jackie, but I don't know.
Heating up exactly the way that we were hoping. We were hoping the field would be clear by now, that people would come to their senses and say, you do need a head-to-head match here. I'm not saying Andrew Cuomo is the answer to that. It appears through polling that he might be. But still, you've got people, we've made the comparison before that Cuomo is, you know, not so great. He's like socialist light version, right, but people will take it when compared to Mamdani win.
Well, there's no question that the business leaders, the business leadership of New York favors Andrew Cuomo. And by the way, also versus Eric Adams, not just compared to Mamdani. So a lot of people have been hoping that Adams would drop out of the race. At least you get only 3 people then. I think what's bad about this kind of news story breaking is that this just fuels Mamdani's narrative that he's the sort of small-time fighter against corporate corruption and corporate greed. And I actually think when you look at some of the sort of big arching themes of the last year and horror shows that we've seen, like CEOs being gunned down in Manhattan because they represent a corporate greed idea that some lunatic thinks, is beyond the pale, and they're going to rectify by murdering someone in cold blood. And then the huge outpouring of support for that action. You know, I think it is on Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and the other progressive Democrats to stop pouring out this rhetoric, this anti-business rhetoric. Most people in America are employed by businesses. Most people get a paycheck from businesses. These are not the evil people amongst us. And honestly, I mean, this is what is driving people to turn out for Mamdani, the fact that he's going to stand up for them against these exact real estate titans. That's why he's talking about capping rents. It is literally the case that it takes twice as long to build something in New York City as any place on earth. That means, yes, it is way more expensive. Why is that? It's not because of the developers. It's not because of the real estate titans. It's because the city council and every little dingbat politician in Manhattan has their hand out, and they want to delay it. They want to get various benefits from delaying it. It's an incredibly corrupt city in that way, and it's not the business's fault.
Yeah. And to me, when I look at this, it's not just about new rent policy, if you're even, looking at it through that lens, Brian. To me, this is actually, if it were to go that far, redistribution of wealth. Because what happens when you do this in real estate, for example, you're destroying the real estate community in this city. You're taking their asset values down. That is their wealth. And you're basically saying we're setting a new, without you being behind us, without the overall capitalist system changing, we are deciding that your assets cannot thrive in this way, cannot be valued in this way. And I have a serious problem with that.
Yeah, well, you're sort of guaranteeing an equality of poverty when you go that route, basically. But can I say also, these real estate folks are not putting themselves in the best light with how they're responding to this. I mean, honestly, they are doing a last-minute emergency meeting to make sure Cuomo is elected. Wasn't there a movie called The Money Pit or something with Tom Hanks where you just keep throwing money into a thing that's never going to work? These are real estate developers, and they're banking on a guy who I just think cannot win this race. And they're doing it on an emergency basis. I mean, when is the business community in New York City going to have a fresh thought for once on politics? They never
Well, but is it the business's fault or is the politicians' fault? Because who else should they elect, right? I mean, I think we're left with two bad choices.
They do, but like, where are these guys a few months ahead of time saying we wouldn't want this Mamdani guy. And, you know, let's be honest, Cuomo is not going to win. Let's do something else. But they don't. They come in last minute. They think they're going to make a difference. And they end up looking like the villains in this that Mamdani's painting them as. And I have nothing against them, but they look like villains in this right now.
It's many months before the planning to put a viable candidate up, and we've talked about this with other guests on the show, is years in the making. And so if the business leaders coming in a last-ditch effort, I agree with you, is too little, too late. But it's also the GOP, Lou, you know, looking at who is our field, who is next, who are they going to run, where's this all, the directional sort of basis of this going, who is our demographic here, because it's changed a lot, and that has a huge impact also. Yeah. And so, I mean, I think it's a failure across the board in many ways. If Andrew Cuomo is your best bet, to your point.
Well, and we've been banging this drum for months now on end, saying that we haven't even been on the defense or the offense, the Republicans, right? We haven't been preparing for this. We've falsely assumed that everyone realizes that socialism doesn't work, right? The data is overwhelming, but what we failed to realize is that message is not getting delivered, and we should have been on the offense delivering it. You know, I would rather better late than never. I mean, we're talking about New York real estate developers that control real estate that's worth $1.3 trillion. It's the largest commercial real estate market in the country at 479 million square feet. To Liz's point, that's a lot of businesses that are employing a lot of New Yorkers. Yeah. This should be a no-brainer to get the message out that Mamdani is bad for business, which is bad for your paycheck, which is bad for that $1,000 cell phone that you're fomenting rage on, that is a product of capitalism, not socialism. So I think it's an easy game to win if we actually played it early enough.
But to Brian's point, I mean, frankly, anyone who sends an email around who doesn't expect that to end up in the New York Times is a lunatic. Right. Obviously, it's going to be leaked. So be careful about your messaging, possibly. Instead of, let's try and get rid of Mamdani, how about, I think we need to support Andrew Cuomo because here is his agenda, which would work well for our business. Actually, what real estate developers tell me in New York is that Eric Adams has actually been very good for their business. He has actually paved the way for new building, new construction, et cetera. I don't know why they haven't been more forceful in backing him.
We learned it from President Trump. Don't tell me what's wrong about the other candidate. Tell me what you're going to do right for us.
If these guys ran their businesses the way they run their political efforts, none of them would be real estate developers.
The buildings would be falling over.
They'd be falling over.
It's true.
I'm not trying to give Zohran Mamdani any ideas, but the fact that these excessively uber-rich people are coming out and saying, oh, we need to support Cuomo and make sure he gets elected, they're standing, he can say, you know, they're the problem.
It's a campaign ad.
And he will.
These real estate developers are your problem. That the Blau, the kind of ringleader of this letter, developed Hudson Yards. Find an apartment that anybody can afford to live in or buy in the Hudson Yards area. Again, it is just this deafness. Like they've made out well, and I'll talk about this next hour, because all of these people are close to the money spigot. Like they have access to zero credit, and so when the shinola hits the fan, you know, they can refinance. They are part of the banking system. They are, you know, when the going gets tough, those who are already wealthy can get wealthier, and those who are humps for a living got to hump harder. Yeah. And that's that. The problems that Mandani is articulating are real. His solutions are harmful and devastating, but these solutions to force on the people of New York City, somebody who literally killed people during COVID. That's their idea? Well, figurative. No, it wasn't figurative. I mean, he sent elderly people into nursing homes who had COVID.
And the ship was available to him. He didn't want to use it.
Right. So that's your idea. Where were you, like, rallying around a candidate early in the year?
Right. Or proposing a different candidate and saying, if these are the three that you've got, one lost the election last time, one has been a decent mayor in the last 6 months, but the rest of the time is questionable. And that's how people feel about Cuomo. So why can't we find someone better?
Yeah, this is depressing. I was holding out hope for a change in September, but I just don't see it. I mean, I don't see it in the numbers. I don't see it.
Honestly, what should be
proposals.
happening is that people should be training their sites on the city council, because a lot of those seats will come up and they are just as bad and just as important, by the way, as the mayor. And it's time to mobilize incredibly strongly in favor of Elise Stefanik becoming governor of New York.
I asked somebody earlier, I said Mandani, mayor, and it was just a stream of expletives. And the person said, I cannot think of one mayor of New York City who is an ideologue. Mandani is an ideologue, and that's very dangerous.
That's a problem.